Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're regular here, you know I review many photographic, audio and video related products. Now today I want to look back at the year 2012 and just go to show how far we've come in 14 years. And we've come a great distance, a hell of a long way in technology as far as filming and photography is concerned. And when you particularly look at filming, now back in 2012 you could get, this was the latest technology, weighs a ton. This was the latest technology back then, and this was the Sony EA50, and it was an APS-C censored camera, HD video camera that was designed for professional use. And it's a hell of a beast. It's actually a nice camcorder, but we didn't have really mirrorless cameras such as the Fuji XS20. These sort of things didn't exist at all back then. So we had stills cameras for taking photographs and separate camcorders for taking video. And that's how it was. There wasn't really the hybrid content creator back then. It was starting to come in. But vast majority of people, if you was a wedding videographer, a corporate video shooter, you'd go out and buy a camcorder. Now this has got interchangeable lenses. It's got the E-mount system on here. And it's got the 16 megapixel APS-C sensor inside there. Probably the same sensor that was in the NEX3 or anything like that, the little compact cameras that they were making back then. So it was great. You could change your lenses. You could put your E-mount lenses on there. So you could get lenses with an f1.4 aperture for getting that lovely bokeh. But it was only HD. And it recorded in the AVC HD format, which was a highly compressed video codec. So the images were still quite soft. It's actually not a very good quality HD image that comes off this camera, but back in 2012, it actually was, you know, it was decent, it was okay. It was fine for YouTube content. Still would be kind of fine now, but it is a softer HD look. But what a beast. Now we have come all this way from here to this, and that is a contrast, isn't it? I mean, flipping heck, what a difference that is in size. Now this little ZV-1, I'm actually filming a close-up shot with me ZV-1 Mark II, but this little tiny ZV-1 records better quality than what this EA50 records, and it's in a much more compact, obviously very, very compact camera. Now the downsides, obviously there are many downsides, although I do say this records higher quality, which it does, because this records 4K and it is a much better codec than what was in the original EA50, but as it's only got a 1-inch sensor, you can't get that creamy bokeh, you can't do those professional interviews where you can throw the background out of focus with this camera. You would be able to get that with this camera. So when I say it's better quality, I say that tongue-in-cheek. The actual output quality is better because it's 4K, but it does lack some of the features. But you can get for around about £1,000, something like the XS20, or even less than that, a camera which will create that lovely bokeh, because this has, well, this has got a 40 megapixel sensor in, but this has got a sensor in, an APS-C sensor that will get that lovely bokeh, or you can get a full frame body. Now when this camera came out, it was £3,500, body only, 3.5 grand. Then you imagine what you can get for 3.5 grand these days. Now, when you look at 14 years later, and you look at the, if you calculate the inflation between then and now, I haven't done it, so I don't know what that is, but it's probably well over 4 grand. You can get an amazing kit that far surpasses what you could do back in 2012. So I just wanted to show people that this is what we were using back in 2012. Some people were using for sort of like weddings and corporate work. I mean, it has got your big monitor there, so it has got your monitor so you can see it in color. It has got autofocus to a degree. I have tried the face detect autofocus. It's pretty unreliable. It's not great, but it's okay. And it has got, you know, various other features. And the one thing that I do like about it, as with all, well, vast majority of professional camcorders, it has got various loads of function buttons on the side, so you don't have to dig into menus to get to certain functions. If you want to turn your zebra on, histogram or whatever, you can do it all via function buttons on the side here, which is nice. But you know what this also hasn't got is built-in ND filters, which is incredible, isn't it? A camera of this size, this weight, has no ND filters, where the little ZV-1 Mark II has ND filter built into it. And I think that is incredible. I really do. Also, with the ZV-1 Mark II and with the ZV-1, you can buy an XLR adapter. So I've got this XLR adapter here. That will fit on most Sony A7 cameras. It works via the multi-interface shoe, so you can get your XLR inputs into the camera. I think that will work with a ZV-1. I know it works with a Sony A6400, 6600, 6700 and what have you. So you can still get your XLR inputs, because the other advantage a camcorder had back then, and even nowadays, it has built-in XLR inputs. It's got two XLR inputs on the side there for getting your audio. But yeah, what a beast. Nice to use, because I say all the manual controls recorded to an SD card, or you could buy, fits in here somewhere, a separate block, a separate memory block that would go into the side. That was really expensive, and it was 128 gig. Well, now you can get, well, I use 256 gig SD cards. So I've got a 256 card CF Express card in my Fujifilm X-H2, and they're tiny. But back then, you see, it was really huge. Memory was really, really expensive, and they would go into the side here. So, yeah, pretty impressive camera for its day. But it's an antique now. You know, you wouldn't dream of going out with one of these to do your filming. It could take photographs, I think, but yeah, it did take photographs, 16 megapixel photographs. But you wouldn't imagine using this for doing photography. There wasn't really hybrid cameras about back then, as I said earlier. You either had your video cameras or you had your photographic cameras. Nowadays, it's all, you know, in one tiny little compact, beautiful compact piece of kit like this, 40 megapixel stills, 4K video, all the different codecs, slow motion, and, you know, mic input, headphone jack, you know, everything in one tiny, tiny little camera. Or you can go even smaller and have something like the ZV-1. This is the ZV-1. The ZV-1 3-inch articulating screen, multi-interface shoe for your audio connections, mic jack, you know, and it's a great stills camera, 20 megapixel stills, as well as 4K video. And if you want 8K video, go for something like the Fujifilm X-H2. That shoots 8K video, and the Canon R5 and the R5 Mark II and several other cameras. So everything's moved towards sort of mirrorless hybrid cameras. There are still camcorders out there, and there is still a market for camcorders. Broadcasters still use camcorders. They don't overheat. The form factor's nice for working with, because they're usually shoulder mount. They're quite big. Well, they are big camcorders. You know, are designed for professional use, and there is still, you know, a need for them. But not for me. I'm a hybrid shooter. I take photographs and I take video. I don't want to go out with separate kit. And then back in the 80s and 90s, before the days of camcorders, we had to use kit like this. This was back in 1989. When I run a TV production company. Back in 1989, we used separate cameras that connected to the recorder via an umbilical cord. And then we only had a black and white viewfinder, so if we wanted to see it in colour, we had to take separate colour monitors. Very, very different way of working. And the cost of those cameras, I remember we bought 3 of those cameras. I think they were £5 each, just for the camera. That didn't include the recorders. So a kit was far more expensive back then, and nowhere near as efficient as they are these days. So kit is really cheap these days for what you can do with it, particularly if you want to make money out of it, not for your hobbyist. You know, you can get the photography and video business is really expensive for your hobbyist, but if you're a professional and you're making money out of it, it actually isn't expensive. Certainly if you're a wedding videographer, photographer, corporate photographer, and what have you. So there we go. That is, well, it's not a review of this camera, because that would take much longer to review this camera. It'd be a bit pointless because it's far too old. You can pick these up for about 50, 60 quid on eBay. But as I say, the HD image is quite soft that comes out of this camera. And because it records in the AVC HD format, quite a few computers don't like that format, don't like that codec. It's a pain to edit with. So there we go. Yeah, so that is the Sony EA50, revolutionary back in 2012, certainly with interchangeable lenses and an APS-C sensor. Funny enough, they called that a large sensor back then, because there wasn't full frame available, but it actually isn't. It's a crop sensor, not a large format sensor. So there we go. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you found that video useful. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. Hit the like button if you like the content of my videos. Would really appreciate that. It does help me grow the channel. And stay tuned for more videos related to video photography, podcasting, so on and so forth. Cheers for now. Bye.